Newsfirst morning on TV1.
ඔබ යලිත් morning on TV1 සමගින් හොරකම නතර කිරීමට අවශ්‍ය නම් ජාතික ජනබලවේගයට ඡන්දය දිය යුතු බව ජාතික ජනබලවේගයේ ජනාධිපති අපේක්ෂක අනුර දිසානායක මහතා පවසනවා. ඔහු මේ අදහස් පළ කළේ ඊයේ කින්යා නගරයේ පැවති ජන හමුවකදී.
ඊළඟ ජාතික සමගිය හදන්න ඕන. ඒක අපි කරන්න. හැබැයි ඒක විතරක් මදි. මේ රට හදන්න ඕන. මේ රට හදන්න නම් මොකද කරන්න ඕන? පළවෙනි එක හොරකම් නතර කරන්න ඕන. හොරකම් නතර කර විතරක් ඇද්ද? හැබැයි හොරකම් නතර කරන්නේ නැතුව හැදීම ගැන හිතන්නවත් බෑ. ඇයි? ආණ්ඩුවෙන් සල්ලි වෙන් කරන පාරකට. පාරට වෙන් කරන සල්ලි වලින් භාගයක් හොරකම් කරනවා. පාර ටික කාලයක් යනකොට කැඩෙනවා. එහෙනම් පාරවල් සංවර්ධනය වෙන්නේ නැත්තේ ඇයි? හොරකම. එහෙනම් හොරකම නතර කරොත් පාරවල් දිගු කාලයක් පවතින හදන්න පුළුවන්. තමුන්නාසලා දන්නවා ඉස්පිරිතාලවල පෞගේ කාලේ බෙහෙත් දුන්නා. මොන බෙහෙත්ද දුන්නේ? කේහෙලිය බ්‍රෑන්ඩ් එක. මොකක්ද උනේ? සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපේ ගම්මලා හිතනවා ඉන්ජෙක්ෂන් එකක් ගහනවා කියලා හිතන්නේ දොස්තර මහත්තයා හොඳට සැලකුවා කියලා. දොස්තර මහත්තයා ඉන්ජෙක්ෂන් එකකුත් ගාලා. ගාලා බලනකොට මොකද වෙලා තියෙන්නේ? ගාලා තියෙන්නේ වතුර කෙහෙලියකි. ඒ කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? සෞඛ්‍ය සේවය හදන්න පුළුවන්ද? හොරකම් නතර නොකර හදන්න බෑ. හැබැයි මේ රට හදන්න හොරකම් නතර කරලා විතරක් මදි. හැබැයි හොරකම් නතර නොකර හැදීම ගැන හිතන්නවත් බෑ. ඒ නිසා අපි ආණ්ඩුවක් හදන්න ඕන. හොරකම් නතර කරන ආණ්ඩුවක්. දූෂණය නතර කරන ආණ්ඩුවක්. නාස්‍ය නතර කරන ආණ්ඩුවක්. කාටද හදන්න පුළුවන්? එහෙනම් තමුන්නාසලා සජිත්ට කතර ගැහුවොත් හොරකම් නතර වෙනවද? ඉල්ලේ. නතර වෙන්නේ නැහනේ. තමුන්නාසලා හොරකම් නතර කරන්න ඕන කියලා සජිත්ට කතර ගහලා වැඩක් නැහැ. හොරකම් නතර කරන්න ඕන කියලා රනිල්ට කතර ගහලා වැඩක් තියෙනවද? ආයේ කතර ගැහුවොත් ඒගොල්ලෝ හිතන්නේ මොකද්ද? මෙච්චර හොරකම් කරලා තියද්දි දුන්නනේ ඡන්දේ දෙන්න ඕන තවත්. මෙච්චර හොරකම් කරලා ඡන්ද දෙනවා නම් තව හොරකම දෙගුණ කරනවා. ඒගොල්ලෝ හිතනවා හොරකම් කරලා ඡන්ද දෙනවා නම් හොරකම් කරාට කමක් නැහැ කියලා. ඒ නිසා හොරකමට විරුද්ධ නම් ඡන්ද දෙන්න ඕන කාටද? ජාතික ජන බලවේගයට ඡන්ද දෙන්න. හාද බෑද? ඕම්. ඕකේ. හරි. එහෙනම් ලෑස්තිද දැන්? හැබැයි හොරකම් නතර කරන්න විතරක් නෙවෙයි ඕන. හොරකම් කරපුවාට දඬුවම් දෙන්න ඕනේ නැද්ද? ආණ්ඩු කීයක් හදද හොරකම් කරපුවාට දඬුවම් දෙන්නේ? හොරුන්ට දඬුවම් දෙන ආණ්ඩුවක් ඕනේ නැද්ද? ඒක හදන්න පුළුවන්ද රනිල්ට? ඒක හදන්න පුළුවන්ද සජිත්ට? හොරුන්ට දඬුවම් දෙන ආණ්ඩුවක් ඕන කියලා සජිත්ට රනිල්ට කතරේ ගහලා වැඩ. තමුන්නාන්සලාගේ දහමේ තියෙනවා. තමුන්නාන්සලාට හොරකම නතර කරන්න බැරි නම් හොරකම් නතර කරන්න පුළුවන් කෙනාට උදව් කරන්න ඕන.
ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිවරයාගේ සමයේ සිදු කළ වැරදි ආර්ථික ප්‍රතිපත්තියම ජාතික ජනබලවේගය තම ප්‍රතිපත්ති ප්‍රකාශය හරහා එළි දක්වා ඇතැයි විදේශකරතු හා අධිකරණ අමාත්‍ය අලි සබ්රි මහතා පවසනවා. ඔහු මේ අදහස් පළ කළේ ඊයේ කොළඹදී කැඳවා තිබූ මාධ්‍ය හමුවකදී.
සියලු දෙනාම දන්නවා 2022 දී ශ්‍රී ලංකාව විශාල ආර්ථික අර්බුදයකට මුහුණ දුන්නා. හැමෝම දන්නවා 2019 දී ටැක්ස් කප්පු ඉඳලා අවුරුද්දකට බිලියන 600ක් විතර අඩු වුණා. ඒ අඩුවීම හේතු කොටගෙන ඉදිරියට යනකොට රජයට මුදල් නැති වෙලා ගියා. ඒ හින්දා තමයි ණය ටික ගෙවා ගන්නත් බැරි වුණා. අපි සියලු දෙනාම දන්නවා වියදම වැඩි වෙනවා නම් ඊට සාපේක්ෂව ආදායමත් වැඩි විය යුතුයි කියන එක. හැබැයි ආදායම අඩු කරනවා කියලා කියන්නේ ඒකත් එක්ක වියදම වැඩි කරනවා කියලා කියන්නේ ඒක කරන්න බැරි දෙයක්. එහෙනම් ගිහිල්ලා මුදල් ලච්චු ගහන්න ඕනේ. මුදල් ලච්චු ගැව්වොත් රුපියල කඩා වැටෙනවා. උද්දමනේ උඩ යනවා. ඩොලර් ටික නැති වෙලා යනවා 2022 කියන තත්ත්වයටපත් වෙනවා. ඉතින් ඕක තමයි කරන්න බැරි. දැන් කොහොමදත් මුදල් ලච්චු ගහන්න බෑ මහ බැංකු පනත හින්දා. එහෙනම් පනත ඉරලා දාන්නට ඕන. ඉතින් මේ සිද්ධිය තුල මේගොල්ලෝ කියලා තියෙනවා IMF එකත් එක්ක තවදුරටත් ඕන ඉදිරියට යනවලු. හැබැයි ඒක උන් යලි සාකච්ඡා කරලා විකල්පයක් ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා. එහෙම කරන්න බෑ. එහෙමනම් ඒගොල්ලෝ කියන්නට ඕන කොහොමද ඒක කරන්න කියලා. 2023 වෙනකොට අපිට තියෙනවා රාජ්‍ය ණය 100ට දල ජාතික නිෂ්පාදනයේ 111ක්. ඒක 95කට අඩු කරගන්න ඕනේ 2032. වචනයක්වත් නෑ ඒක ගැන. කොහොමද ඒක කරගන්නේ කියලා. දල මූල්‍ය අවශ්‍යතාවය 2023 දී 127.8යි දල ජාතික නිෂ්පාදනයේ කොටසක් හැටියට 2027 වෙනකොට එය 13කට අඩු කරගන්නට ඕන. විදේශීය ණය සඳහා ගෙවන ප්‍රමාණය දැනට දල ජාතික නිෂ්පාදනයේ 9.2ක් අවශ්‍යයි. ඒක අඩු කරගන්නට ඕන 2028 වෙනකොට 4.5ට. එතකොට මේ සියල්ල නැතිකොට ඒගොල්ලෝ කොහොමද මේක ගැන කිසිම වචනයක් නැතුව අපි විකල්පයක් සාකච්ඡා කරනවා. එහෙම විකල්පයක් සාකච්ඡා කරන්න බෑ. මේකෙන් අදහස් වෙන්නේ මේ සාකච්ඡා අසාර්ථක වෙනවයි කියන එක. IMF එකේ සාකච්ඡා ලත්තනින්ම ලොප් වෙලා විනාශයකට යනවයි කියන එක. මොකද කොහෙවත් කියන්නේ නැහැ කොහොමද ආදායම වැඩි කරගන්නේ කියලා. හැබැයි කියනවා ආදායම අඩු කරගන්නවයි කියලා. මොකද කොහොමද කියන්නේ ආදායම අඩු කරගන්නවයි කියලා. ආදායම අඩු කරගන්නවයි කියලා කියනවා pay tax එක අඩු කරනවා. වැඩියෙන් උපයනකොට වැඩියෙන් ගෙවන්න ඕනේ. ලෝක හැමතැනම එහෙම තමයි. ඉතින් මේ කියන්නේ ආදායම අඩු කරගෙන වියදම වැඩි කරගන්නවා. එතකොට මේක මහා කඩා වැටීමකට මුල පුරන්න ඉඩ තියෙනවා. මේකම තමයි 2019 දී අවාසනාවකට වගේ අපේ ආණ්ඩුවෙන් කරේ. සම්පූර්ණ ටැක්ස් ටික බිලියන 600ක් අඩු කරගත්තා. රාජ්‍ය කඩාවැට. ඒක නැවත වතාවක් වෙන්න ඕනද? ඒක කරන්න පුළුවන් නම් හොඳයි. හැබැයි වැඩියෙන් වියදම් කරන්න නම් වැඩියෙන් උපය ගන්නට ඕන.
අධික නාමාත්‍යවරයා පවසන පරිදි ජාතික ජනබලවේගයේ ආර්ථික ප්‍රතිපත්තිය අසාර්ථකද? පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රී ආචාර්ය හරිනි අමරසූරිය මහත්මිය ඊයේ හම්බන්තොට පැවති ජන හමුවකදී මේ පිළිබඳ පැහැදිලි කළා.
දැන් මෙච්චර කාල කිව්වේ අපිට ප්‍රතිපත්ති ප්‍රකාශයක් නැහැ කියලානේ. ඉතින් එතකොට ප්‍රතිපත්ති ප්‍රකාශ ඉදිරිපත් කරපු නැති අයට අපේ ප්‍රතිපත්ති ප්‍රකාශයේ මාතෘකාවක් වෙන එක ගැන අපි පුදුම වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලෝ කොහොමටත් අපිව තමා අභියෝගයක් බවට පත් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ඉතින් අපි කැමතියි අපේ ප්‍රතිපත්ති ප්‍රකාශය අපි ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඉතින් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ඒක තුල සංවාදයක් ඇති වෙනවා. ඒ සංවාදය ගැන අපි කිසිසේත්ම පුදුම වෙන්නේ නැහැ. හැබැයි අපිට වැදගත් සංවාදය තියෙන්නේ ජනතාව එක්ක. මම එදා ඒක ප්‍රතිපත්ති ප්‍රකාශනය එළි දක්වන දවසෙත් කිව්වේ මේ අපේ ජනතාව එක්ක ඇති වෙන සමාජ ගිවිසුම කියලා. එතකොට අපිට සාකච්ඡාව තියෙන්නේ ජනතාව එක්ක. අපේ දේශපාලන විරුද්ධවාදීන් ඒක ඒගොල්ලෝගේ වාසියට අපේ ප්‍රතිපත්ති ප්‍රකාශනය විකෘති කළා සංවාද කරන එක ඇත්තටම ඉතින් එහෙම තමයි. ඉතින් ඒගොල්ලෝගේ වැඩ ඒක අපි කියලා තියෙනවා අපි කොහොමද අපේ ආදායම් මාර්ග වැඩි කරන්නේ, අපේ නිෂ්පාදන ආර්ථිකය හදන ක්‍රමය, අපි ආයෝජන ගෙන්නන ක්‍රමය, නාස්තිය වංචාව දූෂණය නැති කිරීම, විදේශ සංචිතයක් අපි විදේශගත ශ්‍රමිකයන්ගේ සංචිතයක් හදන ක්‍රමය, මේවා සියල්ලම අපි කතා කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒක තවත් විස්තරාත්මකව අපි අපේ ආර්ථික ප්‍රතිපත්තිය මේ සැප්තැම්බර් මාසේ 3 වෙනිදා එළි දක්වනවා. ඒකෙන් ඕක තවත් පැහැදිලි වෙයි. ඔබ දන්නවා මේ වෙනකොට රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ විශාල පිරිවැයක් ජනාධිපති කාර්යාලය වෙනුවෙන් ජනාධිපති නඩත්තු කිරීම සඳහා වැය වෙනවා. මිලියන 15000ක් වගේ ගාණක්. ඉතින් ඒක අපි අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම අඩු කරනවා, ඒක පාලනය කරනවා. ඉතින් අපරාධිපතිට වෙන් වෙන මුදල අපි පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ මේ රටේ විධායක ජනාධිපති හැටියට රටට කර යුතු සේවය කිරීමට මිසක් පුද්ගලික හේතු මත නෙවෙයි. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා අපේ ආණ්ඩුව තුල ඒක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම කප්පාදු වෙනවා.
රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහතා නායකත්වයේදී රට බේරා නොගත්තා නම් ජනතාව මේ යන්නේ හාමතේ බව විපක්ෂයට දැන් අමතක වී ඇතැයි කෘෂිකර්ම අමාත්‍ය මහින්ද අමරවීර මහතා පවසනවා. ඔහු මේ අදහස් පළ කළේ ඊයේ හම්බන්තොට පැවති ජන හමුවකදී.
ලෝකෙම අද පිළිගත්තු මහ බැංකුව අධිපතිවරයා, ඒකට නායකත්වයේ දුන්නු ජනාධිපතිවරයා පැත්තක දාලා නැවත අර අපායට අපිට යන්න වෙන්නේ. එදා තිබුණු தත්ත්වය. මොකද මේ වගේ රටක් බංකොලොත් වුණාම මේ වගේ කෙටි කාලයක් ඇතුළත ගොඩාවේ නැහැ. ග්‍රීසිය තාම බැරි වෙලා තියෙනවා. අපිටත් ඉස්සෙල්ලා බංකොලොත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. ලෙබනන් වල ඒ බංකොලොත් භාවය එහෙමම තියෙනවා. අපේ රට මේ IMF එකෙන් ලැබුණු මුදල විතරක් නෙමෙයි අපේ රට පැහැදිලි මාවතකට ගෙනිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා. අද සංචාරක ව්‍යාපාරය ඉහළින්ම ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා. නැවත වෙනත් තීන්දුවක් වැරදිලා හරි ගත්තොත් මම දන්න දේ තමයි නැවත උද්ඝෝෂණ රැල්ලක් ඇති වෙනවා. නැවත ඒ විරෝධතා ඇති වුණාම මේ රටට සංචාරක වෙන්නේ නැහැ. මේ රට සංචාරක වෙන්නේ නැති වෙනකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? අපිට විදේශ විනිමය එන්නේ නැහැ. අපිට ඊළඟට තෙල් ටික ගේන්න සල්ලි නැහැ. පෝර ටික ගේන්න සල්ලි නැහැ. බඩු ටික ගේන්න සල්ලි නැති යුගයක් නිර්මාණය වෙන බව අපි වටහා ගන්න ඕන. ඒ නිසා ඔය කියන නායකයෙක් එක්කෙනෙකුටවත් මේ රට සාමකාමී මට්ටමට තියාගන්න බෑ. ඒකට හොඳ පෞරුෂයක් තියෙන්න ඕන. අර තත්ත්වය තව මාස කිහිපයක් ගියා නම් රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්තයා බාරගන්නේ නැතුව මිනිස්සු මැරෙනවා බේත් නැතුව. ෆාමසි එක ගන්න බේත් තිබුණේ නැහැ. බේත් නැතුව මැරෙනවා. පොඩි උන් මැරෙනවා කිරිපිටි ටික නැතුව. මොනවද තිබුණේ? වැසිකිළියක් කැඩුනට වැසිකිළියකට පෝච්චියක් ගේන්න පුළුවන් කමක් තිබුණේ. ඒ වගේ ඒවා තහනම් කරලා තිබුණා. ටයිල් කැටයක් ගන්න තිබුණේ නැහැ. විදුලි පංකාවක්, ටෙලිවිෂන් එකක්, ඉලෙක්ට්‍රික් බඩුවක් රටින් ගෙනාවේ නැහැ. තිබ්බ ටික කඩේ ගඩම් වැඩි කරලා දුන්නා විතරයි. දැන් මේ ඔක්කොම ගෙනල්ලා තියෙනවා. සුලභ වෙලා තියෙනවා. වාහන විතරයි දැන් ගේන තියෙන. මම හිතන්නේ ඉදිරි දවස්වල වාහන ගෙන්වීම සඳහා අවසරය ලබා දෙයි. මේ අවුරුද්දෙම වාහන ගෙන්වීමේ මේ තහනමත් ලීල් කළ දෙයි. ඒ தත්ත්වයට අපේ ආර්ථිකය අද සකස් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා අත්හදා බල ආයේ යන්නවත් ආයේ ලිහල බල මල්ල ඔබල බලන්නවත් මේ රටේ ජනතාව සූදානම් වෙන්නේ නැති බව අපි හොඳටම දන්නවා.
ශ්‍රී ලංකා වාණිජ්‍ය මණ්ඩලය සංවිධානය කළ අනාගත ලංකාවේ ආර්ථික කතිකාවත විවාදය මේ වන විට ආරම්භ වී තිබෙනවා. මෙම විවාදය සඳහා ජනාධිපති අපේක්ෂකින් සිව් දෙනෙකු නියෝජනය කරමින් නියෝජිතින් සිව් දෙනෙකු එක්ව සිටිනවා. ජනාධිපති රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහතා නියෝජනය කරමින් රාජ්‍ය අමාත්‍ය ශයන් සේමසිංහ, සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මහතා නියෝජනය කරමින් පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රී ආචාර්ය හර්ෂද සිල්වා, ජාතික ජනබලවේගය නියෝජනය කරමින් ආචාර්ය හර්ෂණ සූර්යා පෙරම, ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ නියෝජනය කරමින් මහාචාර්ය රංජිත් බණ්ඩාර මහතා මේ සඳහා එක්ව සිටිනවා. අප දැන් එම සාකච්ඡාවට යොමුවන්නට සූදානම් වන්නේ.
The second phase was the most important to ensure stability and get the economy going. But while doing that, the government as a policy did not ignore the fact of the fundamental causes of macroeconomic vulnerabilities and instability. A comprehensive macroeconomic reform program was initiated to address these root causes. This was a primary requirement at that time. We adopted a comprehensive fiscal reform, a monetary policy reform, the state-owned enterprises reform, financial sector reform, debt restructuring, and then, more importantly, welfare programs. The primary budget deficit in 2021 was 5.7% of the GDP, which was converted with this reform program to a primary surplus of 0.6% of GDP in 2023. In the first 6 months of 2024, the primary surplus reached rupees 543 billion. Inflation declined to 2.4% from 70%. Food inflation, which was at 95%, reduced to 1.5%. The taxpayers, the numbers dropped down to 437,000, was increased to 1.15 million in 2023. Usable reserves were at USD 20 million in April 2022. By end of July 2024, gross official reserves was increased to 5.6 million, so 5.6 billion. Losses of the 52 important SOEs, which was at 775 billion in 2022, converted to a profit of 456 billion in 2023. Interest rates started declining from 30% to a single digit. The currency appreciated from approximately 363 to 300 rupees. The treasury cash balance was converted for an overdraft from overdraft of 832 billion in end 21 to a positive cash balance of rupees 552 billion by end of 2024 April. As a part of the reform program and the improvement in the economy, we also compared the pricing, which has declined significantly. I will not explain, it's there in the slide. The essential items, including fuel, the costs started coming down. I think people expect more reductions to be done, but it's in a more systematic manner that we control the economy. Therefore, the market-driven economic concept, we will ensure that the prices come down further down with the confidence boost in the economy. The more important factor in this entire reform program was making sure that we look after the poor and the vulnerable communities in Sri Lanka. We do admit the fact that poverty levels have increased to 25%. That was as a result of the crisis we faced. One was COVID, and then the economic crisis we had to face. We increase the cash transfers in a more scientific method we are thankful to the World Bank who assisted us, where the poorest household in this country had a cash transfer of 15,000 from a level of 4,500 a month. Apart from that, the elderly citizens with disabilities, kidney patients who needed support from the government were also supported, and their cash transfers were increased by 50% than what they got before. So while we shaped our economy, we ensured that we give the basic requirements that can be funded by an individual. The other most important thing in phase 2 was to bring in...
Honorable Emerson, your time is up. You have 1 minute more.
Sorry, give me a minute. The more important factor is bringing in the legislations which were required. We emphasized, the last 2 years, we emphasized on the new laws and legislations which were passed in Parliament, mainly the Central Bank Act, Public Financial Management Act, Public Debt Management Act, Economic Transformation Law, Parliamentary Budget Office, and the amendment to the Banking Act and Banking Special Provisions Act. So these were keys to ensure fiscal discipline in Sri Lanka, apart from the measures taken to combat bribery and corruption. In my next session, I will explain on how we have emphasized and introduced new legislations with the assistance of the IMF, the World Bank, the ADB, and the other partners to combat bribery and corruption. I think that will have a significant result in the future, and that is something which every citizen in Sri Lanka expects a government to do. So I think we are in the right path, and the economy is strengthening on a daily basis. We have gathered momentum on confidence of the economy. So it is up to the people of Sri Lanka to decide whether we take this growth forward or we decide otherwise. So let us see what happens on the 21st of September. But the assurance what we can give you is that the economy is in the right path. The critical point on the 21st that people has to decide would be on the economy, how we are going to grow, or are we going for a decline in the economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Emerson. May I now invite Dr. Harsha Risilva to make his presentation, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this invite. Friends, given the 10 minutes, I'll very quickly explain our game plan and why we need to be elected. Our objective is a win for all Sri Lankans, based on our conviction that a social market economy is what we will bring the desired outcomes. In short, our model is a synthesis of economic freedom, the belief in markets, and economic justice, the belief in equity, and everybody gets a piece of the pie. Having said this, let me quickly detail out our 10-point plan consisting of 5 pillars. The first pillar, these are my 10 points. The first pillar is transparency and accountability. This is necessary. This is a necessary condition to move forward, but it is not sufficient. We will set the right legal framework, strengthen the CBOC, and key among our plans is setting up an independent public prosecutor to take away the conflicts of interest between corruption litigation and the Office of the Attorney General. On public procurement, we'll bring in the public procurement law, e-procurement platforms, new laws for asset recovery, and also, importantly, better transparency in public finance management, including the bill just passed on the Parliamentary Budget Office. The second point is on stabilization. We got 4 segments in this. First is debt crisis management. We will continue the negotiations if agreements are not signed by the 21st. I hope the deal is close to be closed. At the same time, engage with the IMF to amend certain terms, staying within, however, the DSA parameters. We don't intend to shift those parameters, but we plan to amend within those. Ensure financial system stability while dealing with the NPL issues that we all face. Loan revival units, parate issues with MSMEs, etc. The second point is monetary and exchange rates. Maintains the strengthened independent central bank. We are not going to change that legislation. We supported it. We will ensure that they report to Parliament as required, but we will not interfere in setting interest rates. Keeping in mind, however, Governor, the need for international competitiveness by ensuring an appropriate real exchange rate. That's what we actually require to be competitive. Third is revenue consolidation. We agree on the need to increase revenue to 15.4% by 2027 to 2029. How do we get there? While improving equity of taxation. Key here is digitalization. The RAMIS, the ASICUDA, excise, all of those things we will be looking at very seriously. And we will, and this has been talked about for a long period of time, to create a unified revenue authority. Registration of taxpayers, we heard that there are 1,100 or 1.1 million. There's a lot of double counting. So we need to ensure that people are registered, business professionals, expand the net, increase compliance. But there is one major proposal, that's a middle class tax cut. The tax-free threshold will remain. However, from there to close to ₹500,000 rupees, you will pay at the marginal rate, maximum marginal rate of 24%. And the rich will have to pay at 30 and 36%. We are not being irresponsible, we are being responsible because we understand the repercussions of striking out taxpayers. Several adjustments are proposed for corporate income tax for exporters. That is because of ideology that we need to remove the anti-tradable bias in our economy. But we will talk about that later. We are also thinking about the minimum alternative tax, talking about the OECD Pillar 2 on the base erosion and profit shifting taxes. And we will not, Mahinda is going to get displeased with me, remove as planned the SVAT as it now stands, because there are two SVATs, the suspended VAT and the simplified VAT. We believe that the suspended VAT makes sense, and we will discuss it on how to actually implement the earlier SVAT for exporters and those providing services to exporters. Fourth is expenditure control, rationalize public expenditure, data-driven planning, transparency and accountability, leakage of cash transfers via digital mechanisms. We'll prioritize infrastructure expenditure. We will complete the Kandy Highway, but beyond that, we will have to see how much we're going to put on highways. But the LRT, the train, we will look at carefully. Military spending has to be rethought. Any excesses will be moved to pay teachers. SOE reforms, Suresh will continue with the basic game plan of a holding company, and the Secretary Treasury will decide on the divestiture based on national security issues and things of that nature. There is going to be some increase in expenditure. Public sector salaries will increase, but that is based on the Presidential Commission, the Cabinet Commission on salary disparities. We are not planning on moving away from that. We will keep to the 24% and we will keep to the 25,000, and that we assume is possible because the Treasury has issued a statement that they can do it. Maternity leave benefits and menstrual equity will be two things that we will be focusing on beyond that. Third pillar is the most important, and that is incentivizing growth. More from an anemic 3% growth we need to get to a higher growth path, right? Post IMF program, if we grow at 10%, it will take us till 2047 to reach $23,500, which is a developed country. So let us get started moving in that direction. We don't want to give false promises, but we want to unshackle the markets, reduce and remove interventions, and increase productivity, which is critically important, total factor productivity. 4 areas: trade and investment policy reform. Here we talk about tariff rationalization, export strategy, national single window, and new EPC models. We agree with the new legislation on private enterprise zones. We are fully geared to modernizing agriculture, removing the asymmetry in agriculture markets. Farmers don't know what the buyers want. Then breaking the rice mafia is priority to bring down prices, access to land, the Shakti Rice Corporation, etc., cooperative. Third area is industrial development, connecting to global productive networks, production networks. Our failure has been, for decades, we have been inward looking, we've been statist, para-tariffs since 94, worse since 2005. This country, this economy has really a structural problem of an anti-tradable bias. We need to remove that.
Dr. Harsha, you have 30 seconds.
Right. No, you give me, right, okay. 2 minutes more, no? Here the problem
1 minute more.
is breakdown of walls and building bridges. The fourth criteria, the last one, is on services. I don't need to explain on IT, on logistics, and all the while paying attention to the MSME sector. The fourth pillar is public sector management, digitalization. Our whole program is based on a digital public infrastructure. I'll stop at that. On that, energy and utilities reform, we agree with most of the new legislation, but we can't grandfather non-competitive bids. There is a major focus on renewable energy. Factor market reforms, we will continue what needs to be done. And the last pillar is a strong social safety net. This is key. Like Shehan said, 7 million people are in poverty. So therefore, Sajid wants to create a model that is more like Janasavya, where you don't just dole out money, you have to work for your money, and that's a 24-month program. Until that is structured, we will continue with the Aswasuma, but we plan to increase the first 2 lots from 5,000 and from 8,500 to 10,000. And during the discussion, I'll be more than happy to show you how we plan to increase the revenue to meet all this expenditure. So to summarize, we will continue the path of recovery. We acknowledge the positives. Yet, change to ensure the recovery does not come at the expense of our people's survival. We will incentivize tradable export growth in the long term to permanently lift Sri Lanka out of the cycle of crisis by generating high growth. We will undertake reforms to sustain the change we create, to unshackle markets, and to use digitalization to the max to increase efficiencies and productivity across the economy. And at the end, what we will do is to bring a win for all Sri Lankans. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Harsha De Silva. May I now invite Professor Ranjit Bandara from the SLPP.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for the invite. This is a 10-year plan with 2 components, which is outcome-oriented. In this, there will be immediate relief package. 2 speakers have explained why we need a relief package. And sustainable integrated growth strategy with 4 pillars. And at the end, there will be an economy from 90 billion to 180 billion within a period of 10 years. We are looking at 7% annual average GDP growth. There will be increasing per capita income from USD 4,000 to 8,000 over a period of 10 years. What we propose is based on the essence of Mahinda Chintane. However, in this fundamentals of Mahinda Chintane is timely revised, modernized, structured, innovate to address the current issues and enhance the future prospects of the economy. There is a achievable outcomes oriented policy framework. There are no fairy tales included in it. Let me answer a possible question you may ask, why we have taken the essence of Mahinda Chintane, which was proven and outcome oriented, visible, sustainable and holistic. What will be presented briefly here will be presented on the 2nd of September. You will see the details of our policy framework. For the time being, let me briefly explain what we are proposing in our policy framework. As I said, it will be in two components. One is the package of immediate relief across the board. Number two, there is an integrated sustainable economic growth plan with 4 pillars. Let me outline the package of immediate relief. The list can go up to 100, but of course, for the time consideration, food for all, relief for utility bills, affordable fertilizer, 100,000 jobs, financial empowerment of youth, strengthening the Samruddhi program, immediate tax relief, efficient public service, uninterrupted medicine supply, fast-track investment, and also, for the first time, state balance sheet, forensic audit where necessary, and research for commercialization. Now, let me take you to the first pillar of sustainable growth plan. That is prioritizing the state. Now, why we need to prioritize the state? We have to protect our national interest, economic sustainability. Therefore, in which we propose efficient public service, mostly to support the other 3 pillars in our growth plan. Let me take you to the second segment of this growth plan, that is innovation, where we have 4 main sections which are key to achieve state priorities, as I said, national interest, economic growth, social progression, environmental sustainability. Now this particular pillar includes state sector, that is public sector optimization, e-governance, no sales of public enterprises, high quality public administration, etc., etc. Agriculture modernization, manufacturing sector and the service sector. Now, the third pillar, investment. We believe investment in 4 areas are essential to drive innovation-led development. Entrepreneurship, human resource enhancement, research and development for commercialization, investment in infrastructure. And the fourth pillar, which is freedom. We believe 4 main types of personal freedom are essential for scale up the development program that we propose. Number 1, expanding the economic freedom, protecting political freedom, protecting cultural freedom, protecting religious freedom. This policy framework is meant to address immediate issues that many of us facing right now, and also to take the Sri Lanka to the next level. And as I said, we have included no fairy tales. This is doable. How we do it? We will expand the economy from 90 billion to 180 billion with a 7% annual average growth rate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Bandar. You stuck to time. May I now invite Dr. Harshana Suriperuma, representing the NPP.
Aiwan, Vanakkam, Assalamu alaikum, and good morning to you all. I suppose, Duminda, we would have had many sessions of this nature when there's an election nearby. We would have listened to this type of rosy stories or fairy tales, lot of graphs as to this is how we are going to implement. But look at the results. It's boiling down to implementation. It's about credibility of political leaders to deliver what they preach. If you look at the Auditor General's statement, my presentation will have 2 components, just to brief. One is why we are here today as a nation and what's our plan as we go forward. Auditor General of the country is mentioning since 2015 to 22, 8 trillion rupees government has borrowed as for project loans, of which 75% is unaccounted for. Our international counterparts, I'm sure they are listening. This is where the money is going. Duminda, representing auditors, it will be an insult to auditors when Auditor General has reported 75% of the funding is unaccounted for. We are here listening to a team who are answerable for that. That's one angle. Madam Kasturi, coming from the private sector, in your organization, if you have managers, key managers, who have never delivered the budget, overspent on their budget, on their expenses, overloaded factories with staff, never delivered what they promised, would you interview them again to ask what are they going to do within the next 5 years? What would your shareholders think if you do that one? What would your employees think who would look up to you if you do that? But here we are today, doing the same thing, listening to failed politicians and their stories as to how are we going to do it again within the next 5 years. That's why a change of culture is required in Sri Lanka as to how we approach this as a nation. Central Bank printed enormous amount of money. Which provision of the previous Central Bank Act prevented the Monetary Board to take an independent decision as if there were competent officials there, appointees there, to say no to a minister? When the government is asking, if the Secretary to the Treasury is asking to print money, that's why there are many members, not just one, in the Monetary Board to say no, not to be overwhelmed by intimidation of politicians. That is the change of culture we need to look at, not just by changing legislations. Few months back, the same Secretary to the Treasury said, if you are going to increase 10,000 rupees, we have to increase VAT. We don't have money. 2 months later, when the government is saying we are going to increase salaries again, the same state officials are saying, oh yes, the government revenue has now increased. We can ask IMF to increase our provisions for increasing salaries. We need a change of culture where state officials will be able to stand up on their own for what they truly believe, not to be lip servants to the politicians. That's the change of culture that we are talking of. Let's get quickly to the presentation. We'll move on to the next slide, please. It's about the future of this country. We have seen promises that were saying, I don't know how many of you all came today in a Volkswagen made in Sri Lanka. I'm not sure whether the ambassador from the German embassy is representing us. These were, which one should I press? This one? Okay, thank you. So, whether the German ambassador or the diplomats will vouch for these stories that was told, misled people to win elections. Google balloons, I can see it's hovering all over Sri Lanka, and we are enjoying free internet. Now, in one angle, some are saying we have to bring an end to the menace of subsidies, whereas the same politicians are going and leaders are going and distributing handouts. Party leaders are saying, senior officials saying that they are funded through illegitimate sources. Should we continue this political culture in Sri Lanka? We are saying we have ended queues. If you go and looked at the visa queue yesterday, this would have been your picture. Millions of Sri Lankans are trying to run away from this country. This is the country these failed policies and politicians have created. Don't we need to change that? So that's why, and the political culture, once again, the Central Cultural Fund, there's a report saying, there's allegations saying, so much of misappropriation. It has come to Parliament. Where are the outcomes? Is this the culture that we want to continue? We can see a few weeks back, a banking seminar was called, and banking senior officials were advised on governance side. I couldn't stop laughing when I see who was on the stage. And when the head of the state, under the privileges of Parliament, is abusing the judiciary, where can you expect the rule of law? This is the change that we expect for Sri Lanka. This is the change people of Sri Lanka is asking for. That's what NPP is all about. It's about the leadership. It's about the purpose-driven policies. It's about a team with an unblemished track record to deliver with experience and expertise. It's about clean politics, accountability, governance and transparency in our implementation. It's about rule of law that we are going to deliver, allow businesses to ensure you will have a level playing field and fairness in terms of conduct, in terms of by taking away the impunity given to politicians, and the same law will be applied equally to them as well as to you, not to rob the business opportunities that you have. It's built on a bedrock of zero tolerance for corruption. When the highest level of the country is tarnished and tainted with corruption, You cannot expect the ministers, the cabinet, the secretaries, the board of directors of state institutions to say no to corruption. There will be zero tolerance for corruption in the policies that we implement. Government will play the role as the facilitator, provide the necessary resources for the businesses to grow to the full potential that you deserve to be. This is the opportunity that we will create. It will be through a wave of digitization. We will bring resources together. We will connect entities, connect businesses, connect individuals to take Sri Lanka forward.
Dr. Sudipira, we have...
I'll take a few more seconds.
Yes,
I'll
please. Yeah.
Stop now. And it will be by creation through the production economy, which I will explain. We will connect Sri Lanka to global value chains, allow you to thrive as businesses to the best potential of yours, but at the same time deliver social equity and inclusion also. Let's discuss more detail when we get a time. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. A lot of answering that you have to do. May I now turn to the Q&A. My first question to... okay, I'm sorry. We have a slight change in the format. Gentlemen have to stand and answer with podium in front of you whilst we are seated. We have to create an atmosphere for a true debate. You have to come up to the podium. Seated. Yeah. Yeah, put them here. So, my first question is to Honorable Shahan Semasinghe. If you don't mind, I think we'd like you all to be at the podiums we have made for all of you. Sorry, yeah, we are seated, yes. You're serving the people after all. Yeah. Honorable Shahan Semasinghe, we saw your presentation where you have mentioned a lot about what has happened over the last 2 years in terms of stability. But what is your program that you all have in mind to bring growth? Because stabilization and reform can't be the strategy every day. There has to be a growth path that also you have to show as to how you are going to bring 3, 4, 5%, 6% growth, at least in 3-4 years' time, or work towards that. So what exact plans does Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe has in the event he's elected to bring the growth strategy? You have 3 minutes to answer.
Yep. Davinda, it's a good question. I think we have already reached, and hopefully we will reach somewhere around 4% growth this year. So the key was reforms. You can't forget the reform path. And like Sri Lanka has faced crisis situations in the past. Then we go to the IMF. This is the 17th time we went to the IMF. The moment we stabilize, there is a tendency to reverse. So this vicious cycle plays in Sri Lanka, and as a result, I don't think any of us would wish for an 18th IMF program, which will be very tough than the 17th program what we go through. We have a plan on this. The main reason why we introduced the economic transformation law was aimed at this plan. Because every political leader tends to bring out policies which he thinks would make him popular. So now we have a law in place. The law has targets. it is answerable to Parliament, and it is the duty of any government to ensure that you deliver what is being specified in the law, and if there is a deviation, then still there is a way out to that also, to ensure that the country won't return back to a crisis. We do understand growth is very important, but at the same time stability is also very important. We need stability basically to be enabled. Without growth, we can't have stability. So stability should run in parallel with growth, and we have always shown our results. I think the results itself will speak, and we will expect to have a growth strategy of 7% in the economy to ensure that we have lost, basically our GDP has come down, and our intention is to ensure that we have a further growth on the economy and ensure that we are fully stabilized. I think this will take a further 12 to 15 months, and thereafter we can have a safe and a promising country what we wish for.
Thank you. Can you say something what will you do different to what you are doing now in the event your candidacy elected?
Okay. One,
on the growth side of it.
Yeah. If you look at on the growth side, okay, give me a second, please. The more importantly, we will, where did Sri Lanka focus mostly? We focus mostly on fiscal or monetary stimulus, then going in for productivity increase. So this is one of the key concerns we all had, and that had not worked well for Sri Lanka. Then secondly, we have already introduced new economic zones, and also the new FTAs we are looking at. We have already finalized the FTA with Thailand to ensure liberal trade. We are also discussing and near finalizing the FTA with India, with the ECTA agreement. That will also have will help us to grow the economy. And also, if you look at the ETA, the Economic Transformation Bill, this also have the Productivity Commission. The Productivity Commission will basically support productivity enhancement of firms seeking to penetrate to export markets and those facing import competition. We will also have a trade national single window process, which we are working on, which is need of the hour, and also a national tariff policy that strikes a fair balance between interests of exporters, importers, and consumers. Agriculture modernization would be one of the key sectors Sri Lanka will, our government will focus on. And then if you look at the Urume program of land ownership, so that will also be very important to stimulus growth.
Okay, thank you. So we'll stop at that. Thank you very much.
Dr. Harsha De Silva, this question is to you. So we've heard your presidential candidate say in numerous places, and we've read as well, that under him the government would look at renegotiating the IMF terms and conditions. Today you actually said that you all are looking at giving additional public sector salary adjustments. I think yesterday or day before there was a conversation about you all giving 20,000 rupees, or is it a gratis, and I'm not sure whether it is a gratis or a program to the poor. Now in this context, can you tell us the parameters you're looking at to renegotiate in relation to the three factors of revenue of GDP, gross financing needs, and primary account surplus, and this at the same time to ensure that debt sustainability is achieved?
Well, I mean, I'll be quite honest with you. We all know it was us who advocated in 2020 August, the first day I came to Parliament, 9th Parliament, that you guys better go to the IMF and resolve this before we became bankrupt. All you guys laughed at me, said, what nonsense, we have a homegrown solution. There is no homegrown solution or there was no at the time, right? And we all learned lessons. We don't have to be standing here saying, look, we are unable to change any condition in the IMF agreement. We don't buy that. We didn't oppose the government going to the IMF. We didn't vote against it because we knew as a responsible opposition that was necessary at the time. Now, from that day on, we said there are certain things we need to amend. If you recall the graph I put up on the screen that showed how the emerging markets were contributing to global production. It was going up and up and up. And Sri Lanka's case, you saw it going up and then crashing. We are one of the most closed economies in the world. You look at how you measure trade openness, add exports and imports, divide that by GDP, compare against other countries, you'll realize yourself. So we need to ensure that we realign our economy from what some people call import substitution, statist. Remove the anti-tradable bias in our system. Unless you do that, we are never going to get the kind of growth that people are talking about. So for us, the problem in the IMF agreement is for them, debt is debt, growth is growth. And we say no. Debt is our external debt, domestic debt. And we need tradable growth and non-tradable growth. During Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa's time, we had 9% growth in 2012. And it crashed to 3%, 3.5% in 2013 because it was construction-led, non-tradable growth. That is not sustainable. So what we told the IMF is what we need to ensure that we are safe, our debt is sustainable on the external front, is to ensure that we have growth on the tradable front. Now, we need to link those two things. To us, this agreement is more like an extended SBA than an extended fund facility. So therefore, some tilting of the economy, making sure the incentive structures are right so that it is more profitable for investors like yourselves to put money in internationally competitive production rather than sort of be protected behind large protective walls and to be inefficient and yet make money hand over fist and sometimes even think of running for president. So in that context, the other issue we've told the IMF is about equity in taxes. A lot of middle class people working up to say getting 500,000 rupees a month is getting hammered at 36% highest marginal tax rate at 308,000 rupees a month. Can you live with that? But at the same time, we have undertaken to deliver 15.4%. So like I said, on the taxes, we are not changing the DSA parameters. We have been very clear. The 15.4% on taxes, the 2.3%, Peter and I had a great debate. I said, look, Peter, 2.3, 2.1, let's discuss this, right? But essentially, we are not messing around with the DSA. We are not going to do an alternative DSA. The DSA, what you did, Mahinda, what you did, Nandala, is not what is being applied. It is what they did, the staff did. Anybody can download the DSA and do it. But that doesn't mean you can get the IMF to agree to that, because all of those are based on assumptions. You can say that, Professor, you can have 7% growth. But where are you going to get the 7% growth? That's why I said, even post-IMF, to get to $23,000, you need 10% growth year on year on year on year. Can you do that? Let's be realistic, right? So on that basis, what I explained is our middle class tax cut. And we have been extremely responsible. We are not changing the tax-free limits. We are not changing the 36% limit.
Asha, will the parameters that are currently there, the 2.4% targets that are given by IMF, change?
Okay,
how are you going to find out?
So we got the 95%.
Right.
Then we got the 13%. Within the 13%, we got the 4.5%. We got the 2.3%. And then you got to make sure you have enough debt restructuring to fill the gap. That's all. Right? But within that, certainly we once we get elected on the 22nd of this month, next month, must have the freedom within the parameters, within the contours, to make certain adjustments. So the adjustments we are not talking about here are nothing for you to worry about. We are not going to collapse the program, because we are the people who told to go to the IMF. And also on the monetary policy side, we are not going to set interest rates. We won't. How can we? The whole point of printing money is setting interest rates. You set interest rates at 5% and tell the central bank, you print at 5%. Right? So we are not, Duminder, we are responsible. Please understand, we have a good team. We have Iran, we have Kabir, myself also included. We know. We worked in this country. We worked overseas. We have been entrepreneurs. We have created wealth. Right? Created jobs. Worked. And also understand. Sajid, I'll tell you the issue. Sajid